So now we're continuing then with the concept of New Age, and we've engaged in the first lecture with pretty much lots of descriptions. All right, sort of trying to tell you what this is all about, in the sense of the generalities, general descriptions of the New Age movement. What I want to do now then is to tell you the origins then of the New Age movement, okay? The origins of the New Age movement as a way of thinking, the origins of the New Age movement. Now, when we were looking at worldviews, you remember we did also talk about the modern, postmodern, and post-Christian worldviews. You remember that? All right. Well, that was a long time ago, but I hope you remember. And we're saying when you're dealing with particularly the postmodern worldview, and the post-Christian worldview, you're dealing essentially with worldviews that was rebellious. A worldview that sought to remove itself from the mainstream. A worldview that challenged established norms. Marriage is between a man and a... No, in the modern, postmodern, and post-Christian worldview, that established norm no longer applies. Marriage can be between one man and another man. One man and several women. One woman and another woman. So that the idea of universal norms, generally accepted principles of conduct, of life and of behavior were rejected, and we came to that which we called the Age of Relativism. You remember that word, relativism? A relativistic attitude is an attitude that says there is really no right or wrong. Okay? There's only what people do. One man's food is another man's poison. What is wrong with you is not necessarily wrong with me. The modern, postmodern, and post-Christian culture, principally from the 50s, 60s, all the way to the late 80s, this is the period we're talking about, says, look, you don't have to tell me that polygamy is wrong. You Westerners stick to one man, one woman. We in Africa have always had that arrangement where in fact we can have more than one wife. You have one wife, that's good for you. Just don't bring it on me because I have another different culture. Well, in matters of religion, the modern, postmodern, and post-Christian worldview will say there are many books which are religious instructions. The Bible is one of them. Okay? But we also have the Holy Quran. And then we also have the Bhagavad Gita of the Hindus. And we have the Book of Mormons, for example. The Pearl of Great Price, whatever it is. Who is to say that the Muslim is wrong? Who said it? You will answer Stephen and say, the Bible says. But they'll say, they don't believe the Bible, they believe the Quran. So who are you to say that mine is wrong and yours is right? You understand what I'm saying there? So the Age of Relativism says, what works for you is good for you, but it may not be good for me. So the modern postmodern and post-Christian culture says there is no absolute right or wrong. What is right to one may be wrong to another. The one who feels that this is wrong must not attack the one who feels this is right. And therefore, let us try to understand each and accommodate one another, they say. What I'm telling you now, as we continue the conversation on New Age, is that the New Age was in many ways the parent of the modern, postmodern, and post-Christian attitudes. But here's what I'm trying to say now. It is also a child of those attitudes. Now, that's almost an oxymoron. What I'm saying is this idea that men have, this idea that there will come a time of harmony among world cultures, world religions, world philosophies, okay, thought systems, there will be harmony, peace, and acceptance. That has always been a New Age concept, right? It's been an expectation of human beings. To that extent, New Age predates, you understand? Comes before the modern, postmodern, and post-Christian culture or era. But New Age, as a definite movement, as a clearly definable movement, as an out-and-out movement, is a child of those movements, modern, postmodern, and post-Christian culture. But what unites them, I don't know whether I'm confusing you, but what unites them is this rebellion to established norms. You don't have the right to dictate to me. So here's what I'm saying then. What became properly New Age is dated in the mid-70s, I could even say early 70s, 1970s, and onwards. That's when New Age as a concept began to really be defined and take shape. Began to be defined and to take shape in the 70s. Now, there's a number of things I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, that are very important. But this one thing I want to say before I do say those things. At the heart of New Age, and please never forget this, because this is important. At the heart of New Age movement, if you like to call it philosophy, at the heart of New Age is the rejection of God and the elevation of the individual. The rejection of God and the elevation of the individual. Let me try and put that differently. The rejection of established norms, established patterns, established authorities, and God is part of the established authority, isn't it? And the elevation of the individual. The coming New Age, the age of Aquarium, all right? Aquarius, will be an age when the individual matures. When the individual gets to a place where they discover who they truly are. And I'll show you what they will discover, because New Age has very funny ideas of what the individual is to discover. When the individual discovers who they are, they will change their situation. Therefore, the age of Aquarius will be the age of enlightenment, all right, and illumination. The age of Aquarius will be the age of enlightenment and illumination. The New Age says that up until now, most human beings are controlled by forces outside of themselves, like God. So that, poor us, we're obeying rules created for us by somebody we've never seen, somebody we cannot talk to, we cannot feel, something we call God. New Age says there is darkness, there is ignorance, that in fact prevents us from reaching our human potential. The other thing that blinds us are religions. Muslims insist they are right. Christians insist they are right. Hindus insist they are right. And so we go to war. And by the way, they can point to world history and tell you that majority of world battles were fought on the lines of religion. The Muslims who blow up buildings and cars, they blow them in the name of God. They blow them in the name of Islam. Now, don't you rush to condemn Muslims only, because in the 11th century, the beginning part of that, or maybe I think towards the end of the 11th century, a pope, a Christian leader, began what was then called the Crusades. What were the Crusades? But the massacre of Muslims, because they are not Christians. Do you see the point? The shoe is simply on the other foot, isn't it? So both Muslims and Christians have been responsible for massacres, mayhem and destruction in the name of God and on account of religion. Now the New Age says, do you see, religion has failed. All it has brought is war and devastation. The idea of God has only divided us. This idea of sectarian, parochial books like the Bible, like the Quran, have only served to divide humanity and to bring hostility. Therefore, the age of illumination, the age of enlightenment, will be the age where we discard those primitive ideas of Bibles and Qurans, where we are delivered from this enslaving thought of a God who is outside there. And we will realize that there is no God out there, that we are God, and that we are responsible for the things that happen around us. Are you seeing the point? So the age of Aquarius will be an age of enlightenment and illumination. We'll discover, oh, so I'm clinging to some idea of God and there is really no God. So then, in New Age, and I'm going to sort of list a number of things that constitute the New Age juggernaut, if you like. Juggernaut is a very big machine that goes crushing things on its wake. Scientific discoveries, particularly Darwinian evolution, is key to New Age. You understand Darwinian evolution? Darwinian evolution? All right? Charles Darwin, his discoveries in the 19th century again, that there is no creation, as we say, ex nihilo. Creatio ex nihilo. That creation out of nothing. No, that is a figment of our imagination. That is a myth. That is, legend. The reality is, men came from simpler life forms. Flagella, amoeba, single-cell organisms, and then they developed into reptiles, and then they became mammals, and then mammals into you know, the first man, then Homo Pithecanthus and Ramapithecus, and so on and so forth. And then we have the Homo sapiens. And we are still evolving, they say. Darwin then challenged successfully, right, the idea of creation and the idea of God. Now we can explain what we see away from God as creator. That's the theory of evolution, isn't it? People like Friedrich Nietzsche, that German thinker, and I would say a megalomaniac really, came up with this idea that no, we must be courageous enough to know that there is nothing beyond us. It's only us. There is no God outside there. You know, you think there is a God outside there. Better kneel to yourself and pray to yourself because you are God. And Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, did talk about this as dialectical courage. Sorry, I'm talking to myself now. He referred to it as dialectical courage. This is courage in the face of nothingness. You know your life is meaningless, yet you still have courage. In other words, there is no tomorrow. When you die, you just die. Okay? That's it. Nihilism. When you just die, you die. There is no God there. So live your life now. Do the best you can now. Love your neighbor now. Muslim and Christian alike, let them worship the way they want to worship. Sorry, I went in a monologue there myself. So Darwin fired that salvo, and you find that to be very big then in the New Age philosophy. Ecology is another thing that you find in New Age. Ecology. 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 What is ecology, you think? Excuse me. Huh? Study of the environment, that's right. The ecosystem. This idea that there is this one big entity called Mother Nature. The trees, the mountains, the soil, the seas, the water, the animals within it, you know, us. We are part of this one big thing called Mother Nature. Can you believe it? Even Pope Francis just the other day referred to the earth as Mother Nature. And Pope was calling Mother Nature she gives us life. That's New Age. That's New Age. You do know of Wangari Maathai, who gave her life, literally gave her life for the Green Belt movement. There was a time she was clobbered at Karura Forest in Nairobi here, bled like crazy. And when she was taken to the police station and she wrote a statement, she was told to sign that statement. You know what she did? She raised her hair and found where there was blood, and she signed. What Martha Karua was saying is, I'm dying for nature. There are pictures portraying, not Martha Karua, sorry, Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai is seen in a forest hugging trees, and she has closed her eyes. You know, the way you're worshipping, you know, she is one with nature. That's called the green movement, ecological systems or movements. I'll tell you shortly why nature is so important to New Age. Why we can conserve trees even when we are destroying human life. You know that happened in the Mao, isn't it? Now, I'm not saying we should destroy the environment. I'm not saying that. We must be responsible people. But if there's a choice between a tree and a human being, which choice do you make? But world governments, including ours, because of this New Age movement that is being brought by the United Nations, and they now value nature more than they value human life. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. Now again, don't mistake me. We must take care of our environment. I plant trees, by the way. I do. I love trees myself. They're God's creation, isn't it? Yeah. But when it comes to human life, I can't let a woman go out there in the cold with her 6 children, suffering in the cold, because I wanted to protect that tree. Surely, anyway, the ecology. I've already talked about evolution, right? Astrology, the study of the celestial things, right? Hinduism, the idea that there is multiplicity of gods. Satanism, part of New Age, all right? Satanism. You are free to worship Satan if that makes you happy, okay? Because anyway, there's no God out there. Whatever you think of as God, that's fine. Whatever you call it. If you call it Satan, and the other one calls it a tree, whatever it is. Necromancy, that is consulting the dead. Mysticism. These are ideas that are all part of New Age. Remember, it's taken from every culture, every philosophy, right? All these are acceptable. Don't worry about what our brother there is believing. Don't worry. So long as it doesn't affect you, leave him alone. Support him. Pantheism. This idea that God is all and all is God. How many of you have ever heard something called self-esteem? Have you ever heard of that thing? That's a New Age concept. That's a New Age philosophy. Believe in yourself. We even tell our children that, isn't it? When they're just about to do exams. Well, I told my daughter, don't believe in yourself. Never do it. And she performed extremely well. I said, believe in God and work hard. But never believe in yourself. Because scripture tells us to believe in God, never in ourselves. Never. Never at one time. Never. Anyway, self-esteem. How many of you have heard of positive thinking? New Age concept. Think positively. Have a good attitude to life. They are innocent sounding statements. They're part of the New Age philosophy. It's amazing. I could say more, but in our sort of context here, I can't say more because we are not dealing with those complicated concepts. I could have dealt with transcendental meditation, yoga meditation, aromatherapy, right? Homeopathy, acupuncture, yin and yang, right? These are Eastern concepts that have to do with the human wellness. And they're big in Nairobi, by the way. You feeling stressed out? You feeling depressed? You feeling like your body's out of balance? Well, you come to a place and they put you to this area where they are putting very nice scents. Aromas, flowers are mixed up, and then you're told to close your eyes, think about nothing, and then your body is encouraged to attain some kind of balance. It's called homeopathy, aromatherapy, and things like that. They're trying to align your inner you, the yin and yang. They say human beings are composed of two parts. The yin yang, I think. Some of them will call them chi and something. But then get to a place where your inner self is aligned to your outer self. You're brought to this place where you achieve a perfect balance and your body begins to heal itself. There are people now that are saying they can heal cancer, HIV/AIDS using those techniques. New Age philosophies. The idea now that traditional herbal medicines, and by the way, I'm not saying they're wrong. I have actually taken herbal medicines before. But there are people who actually overemphasize natural remedies. Innocent sounding, but it's all part of the New Age. This race towards the age of Aquarius, the utopia, so-called. So we are being brought to this new age where life will be perfect. Harmony, peace, and whatnot, and whatnot. Now, what I'm going to do then, any question? I know I'm going fast and I'm making some big statements here. I'm trying to limit. This is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Let me return to our thought now. Again, the many things I'm saying can be confusing, but I want you to boil it down to this, all right? Let this be the anchor. Whatever thoughts I'm saying, here is the anchor of the New Age. Never forget this. The human being is the ultimate decider of his own destiny. That is it. We are in charge. There is no God out there. There is no right or wrong. There is only us and what we do. If you don't get anything about New Age, that is it. We have the power to live our lives the way we want to live them. Now, where does that come from? At the very center then of New Age movement, idea, and philosophy, I've said, is the autonomy, the independence, the supremacy, the elevation of the individual. Not a government, not God. Authority is the problem. Systems are the problem. They hinder us from exploring ourselves. For example, a book tells you you cannot love another man if you're a man. It is limiting you. What is important? What do I desire? That's what's important. Do I want to marry 10 women? Do they accept to live with me? Yes. It doesn't matter what another authority says out there. It is what I want. That's important. I am a master of my own destiny. I control what happens to me. That is basic. So whatever else I'm saying, these are simply beefing ups. But that is the thing there. Where does that come from? This idea that we are the ultimate deciders of our destinies, that whatever we desire can never be wrong. It is what we desire. So long as I desire it, it's correct. It comes from a pantheistic idea. Now you've got to be familiar with that word now. Pantheistic idea. What does pantheism mean, Okutoi? Pantheism means what? All is God. Isn't it? Pan means all. Theos, God. All is God. So what New Age teaches is this. That everything in the natural realm, everything in the natural realm has God in it. Let me put that a different way. There is God in everything we see and feel. In this camera right in front of me, there is God. So, what is God? And I'm using the word what, not who. Because New Age rejects the idea of a personal God. It's a what? All right? So what is God? God is the sum total of everything. God is the sum total of everything. Because everything has God in it. The chair you're seated on has God. The dress you're putting on has God. The shoes you have God. The food you're going to eat has God in it. These are particles of God. And together they form what? God. So if you're insisting that there is something we should call God, a higher force, that thing is all of us together. That is why I must not attack you. Okay? Because you and I together make God. You and us separate are fragments of God. Are you following what I'm saying to you? Yes. The goal, therefore, because of what we discussed now, the goal, therefore, is to get illumination and enlightenment that not only helps me to see the God within me, but to see the God in everything else. Are you following? The knowledge I'm to have, the illumination I'm to have, is to show me the God within me and the God in everything I see and interact with. When that illumination happens, when that enlightenment happens, when I grow into that knowledge of understanding that there is God in me, and there is God in that tree, and there is God in the Muslim, and there is God in the Hindu, and there is God in the Satanist, I can then appreciate the Satanist. Because there is one common denominator. We all have God within us, and we are all part of God. The reason why we see ourselves different is the darkness of ignorance. So in New Age, the sin of man is not the sin of rebellion against God, is the sin of ignorance. That's New Age. What keeps us from getting to the age of Aquarius, what keeps us from reaching utopia is not sin. That's not our problem. Because there's no sin. There's only what we do. What keeps us from achieving utopia, achieving the age of Aquarius, is ignorance. You are ignorant, Mr. Stephen, because you still cling to a book called the Bible and to an old idea called God, without understanding that you yourself are God, and I am God, and the trees are God, and everything is God. This is what they are calling intellectual, religious, and social evolution. Remember, Darwinian evolution was more of a physical evolution, isn't it? Coming from lower life forms to higher life forms, physically. But we've got to have another kind of evolution, which is religious, which is social, and intellectual. But that will not come by the forces of nature acting on us in terms of adapting and mutating. Survival of the species, the strongest survive. No. This one will be by enlightenment and illumination. The more I know, the better I become. Watch closely. Watch closely now. Watch closely. So, for example, the reason why you're fighting Islam, Mr. Chris, is because you're ignorant of Islam. But if you had taken the Quran and read the Quran properly, you will discover that the Quran speaks about Isa bin Maryam. Are you following? Isa bin Maryam, and as a friend of mine said, Al-Qiyamah, the one who will come in the day of judgment, Isa bin Maryam. You'll also discover that the Quran speaks of him as the Word of God. Does that sound like scripture? John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word. Right? Well, if I listen to a Hindu, I'll discover they don't attack Jesus. And by the way, I was in Kisumu some years ago, and I engaged an Indian shop owner, and they told me, your problem, you Christians, is you love Jesus, and that's good. Jesus is a good man. But you reject all else. We accept Jesus. Jesus is one of the greatest masters who ever ascended. But to say he's the only one, that is where you're making the mistake. Oh, you Europeans, you arrogant European missionaries, how could you say Africa was godless? Wasn't Africa worshipping Were? Weren't they looking to the east the rising of the sun and offering sacrifices? Weren't they doing that? There was religion. They knew they had a need for atonement. You see, you arrogant white people, if only you had listened to the African pagan, you've not known that the pagan has something about religion. Don't change them. Just understand them. The enlightenment, the illumination will help us to destroy the barriers and the walls, and then we will become one happy humanity, celebrating Islam and celebrating Christianity, celebrating Hinduism, paganism, African mysticism, all these things, because we are all God. And as we come together, we bring God together. Out of that New Age philosophical construct has come a very popular saying which you might have used yourself. There are many ways that lead to God. You've heard that? You probably have used it. Well, you know, we are all different denominations, but we are all looking for the same. It's a New Age concept. It's a New Age concept. As we grow intellectually, we are growing into God. So what is required then in New Age? Let us tolerate one another. Let us not attack each other. This is amazing. But remember, it is that whole idea that the individual is the locus of attention. The individual is the center. The individual is the master, because in the individual there is God. I'm going to ask you a question. In terms of your biblical history, let us leave the 1970s, all right? When New Age became a movement in that sense then. But biblically speaking, how old is that New Age concept? Come on now, that's an easy one. Just think back to your biblical history. No, that's not biblical history. I'm saying look at the Bible and tell me. This idea that the individual is the decider of their own destiny, that in fact the individual can be God. Haven't I given it away already? Say that again? Absolutely. In fact, not after the fall, during the fall. Genesis chapter 3. Wasn't that the proposition of Satan? You shall be like God. Don't be controlled by a force outside there. You have the decision in your hands. You can stretch your hand and eat, and you will be like God. You'll come into this new age, this new knowledge. In fact, the tree was a tree of knowledge, isn't it? God knows when you eat this, your eyes will be open, and you shall be like God. New Age. It's the same thing New Age is offering. When you come into this secret knowledge of understanding, of enlightenment, of illumination, then you live in the God class. Now, because the individual is the powerhouse and the decider of his own destiny, therefore, such concepts as human potential became very popular in the 70s. The human potential. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had many books come out exalting the power of the individual, the strength of the individual, the capacity of the individual to decide his own destiny. Ben Carson wrote a very popular book, Think Big. Discover your potential, some of them say. And so, like I said before, those ideas of believe in yourself. Scripture says, have faith in. No, New Age ideas now tell you, believe in yourself. Whatever you set your mind to do, that one you can do. Now, don't make a mistake. If you want to prove anything in the Bible, you can prove it by what we call proof texting. Not proper exegesis, but proof texting. Just taking texts of scripture and plastering them on your ideas so that they sound biblical. I think there was a statistic between the 80s to the time we are living in now, right? That's the day of the New Age. If you go to any bookshop, up to 80% of the books that are sold there will be in the category of what we call self-help books. How to build a happy marriage. Those are self-help books. How to pursue a successful career. How to, 7 keys, 7 ways. No, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kim Kiyosaki. Right? Self-help. Because at the core, people felt we are coming into the age of Aquarius, isn't it? We are discovering that our destinies are actually in our own hands. If only we can get information, knowledge, enlightenment, and illumination, we can actually change everything that we want to change around our lives. There is no God out there. Now here's the catch and here's the trick. Some of these principles come into Christian thought and Christian mainstream dressed in biblical language. And we don't see them. We don't see them. And that's a shame. That's a shame. So the next time you hear somebody say, you know, we are gods, we are in the God class, we have the power, believe in yourself, think positive. You know, this person is in the realm of New Age. Sometimes they don't know it. They only had an American preacher preach on TV, or an American preacher preached, and then somebody in Kenya here read their books, he brought that on TV, he's teaching it on TV, and poor us, we are there. You know, we're having that argument about names, and then Japheth, right? I hope you've thought some more about that. But again, if somebody's teaching, we hear it, it excites us, we run with it. And if we do it for a long time, we get persuaded ourselves that that is biblical truth, when it actually isn't biblical truth. So, in terms of the New Age, now I'm going to repeat something I've said, and then I'm going to make one more segment in terms of telling you 5 basic assumptions that are present in the New Age movement. 5 basic assumptions. But before I do that, New Age, therefore, tells us that we are going into this sort of utopia, this age of Aquarius. What I'm going to tell you is New Age borrows heavily influenced by Hinduism and Buddhism. Because those 2 religions actually from a long time ago had this idea of pantheism, many gods, everything is God. There are some New Agers, okay, who will even tell you, actually, that which you Christians call God, we call Mother Nature. You just call it God, isn't it? But we call it Mother Nature. What does that mean? Mother Nature is a collection, a total of everything, isn't it? And because there is God in everything, when everything is looked at together, it's God, isn't it? So yes, there is the idea of God. We just don't call it God as a personal being. We call it Mother Nature, who gives us life. The more modern New Agers will talk of a God consciousness. All right? A God consciousness. They will say, indeed, there is no personal being out there called God. There is nothing like that. But we all know that there is something bigger than us. At least there's something bigger than us. For example, the government is bigger than us, isn't it? If you look at yourself as an individual, the government is bigger than us. But the government of Kenya also submits to something we call the United Nations. So that is bigger than the individual nations together. So there's always something bigger than something. Ultimately, there's this idea that controls the whole of humanity. What is that idea? The good of humanity. That is why the United Nations is there, isn't it? So that Ethiopia doesn't attack Kenya. Okay? They maintain peace and harmony, understanding between nations. Because ultimately, there's an idea that is bigger than all of us. Now they will say, that idea, that consciousness, that there is something higher than all of us to which we need to subscribe to, that idea is what Christians sometimes will call God. It's a force, it's an energy. It's complicated, people. That's what I told you, it's a movement. Now, I was watching an interview yesterday, a fascinating interview. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday. Fascinating interview, fascinating. This young man had come out of New Age, all right? He was a New Age instructor, trying to teach people about the New Age. He became very rich, bought many houses in America, many cars, and then God saved him, so he was giving his own testimony. And he looked at himself as a servant of God. This is his testimony. He says, I looked at myself as a servant of God, not in the way Christians think of God, but Mother Nature, this higher idea, this higher good, this higher force, this all of us together, that one, whatever it is God to me. And I was serving that. And in my own way, he had millions of people follow his Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel, website. He said he was leading these people to that higher idea by illumination and enlightenment. All right? That is the whole concept of Illuminati, by the way. Illuminati simply comes from the word illumination. The enlightened ones. The ones who have understood. Okay? They are free now because they have understood. Illuminati. And so he says, one of the things he says that I found interesting is that he was helping to increase the vibration of the universe. By his teachings and his principles, he was helping to increase the vibration of the universe. The more the universe vibrates, the more it gets together, all right? And the more we come to this enlightenment and illumination, we are always progressing to the age of Aquarius. Difficult concepts to put in the mind. What am I saying now? I'm saying at the core of it then is that whole idea that we're going to be reaching what the Hindus would have called the nirvana. A place where you get to be so happy, so fulfilled, so at peace with yourself, wanting nothing, lacking nothing, because you have understood everything now. That understanding the Hindus call moksha. Moksha. I'm fully enlightened. I have no reason to hate you, because if you still hate me, I pity you. You're only ignorant. If you're still going door to door trying to make me a Christian, I'm only pitying you. Oh dear, look at him. He still doesn't understand. He still doesn't. He needs to be helped. So there is no way I've come to that place of perfect peace with you. Moksha, nirvana. The age of Aquarius. Is this, I know the technical aspects isn't making a lot of sense, but is it generally making sense? Okay. Again, I have tried to apply this in a way we can understand, because these concepts are difficult concepts, really. They are. But I'm only addressing it insofar as we can identify some of those things, like self-esteem, believe in yourself. These are concepts we've related with, yet we've never known where they come from. So that's my only interest, not to discuss the technical aspects of it. So now let's deal with the 5 basic assumptions of New Age. These are the pillars on which New Age is built. Now remember, I've said the individual is at the center. Assumption number 1. Assumption number 1. Everything in existence is one essential reality. Everything in existence is one essential reality. Everything in existence is one essential reality. There is a doctrine that we may have discussed some time back. It's called monism. Monism. Now again, it goes back to the pantheistic idea, all right? That everything participates in divinity. Everything. The chairs, the trees, the water, the atoms, the molecules, whatever it is, everything in existence participates in divinity. There is a drop of God in everything. There is an emblem of God in everything. In other words, this is an SD card, all right? Well, is it the same as me? No. But if I'm to analyze this thing properly, says New Age, if I analyze it properly, the essential identity of this thing has God in it. It came from God. If you analyze me, there is God in me. So what he's saying is everything in existence has one or other, is one essential reality. That is called monism. The tree. Analyze it. Eventually, it participates in divinity. That's simply the old pantheistic idea that there is God in everything and there is everything in God. Secondly, which comes from the first one, God is all and in all. God is all and in all. As I look at the camera in front of me, I'm looking at God. All right? Number 3. If that is true, that God is all and all is God, then man is divine. Man is divine. Man is divine. That's number 3. Man is divine. It's amazing that some gospel preachers preach that kind of thing. Man is divine. Number 4. That man must develop cosmic consciousness. Man must develop a cosmic consciousness. The word cosmos is a word that refers to the universe, right? Consciousness is my awareness. So man must develop this awareness that I'm part of the cosmos. All right? I'm part of the cosmos. I must stop thinking individualistically, sectarianly, parochially. I must begin to think in a cosmic way. What is it that unites me with the antelope, with the chimpanzee, with the fly, with the lizard? I got to think cosmically. Man must develop a cosmic consciousness. Obviously, this is where enlightenment comes in, isn't it? And illumination. As I develop, as I grow in knowledge, I become more conscious of the cosmos. I must not now reject other people because of what they believe or because of which person they choose to marry, whether it's a man marrying a man or a woman marrying a woman. I must never judge people. Develop a cosmic consciousness. If you develop a cosmic consciousness, you might end up in fact, by the way, someone like Oprah Winfrey. Have you heard of Oprah Winfrey? This American media mogul. She's a woman who is so influential, black American. I think they've said she's the most influential woman in the last 100 years, in the last one century. Barack Obama became president, I think, in large part because Oprah Winfrey stood behind him. If Oprah Winfrey stood behind my book, any book I write, and she lifts it up on her television shows, the next day, millions will be lining up to buy that book. That's how powerful she is. Obama was struggling until Oprah Winfrey stood up and said, America, is he the one? That's the only question she asked. She didn't tell them to vote for him. She simply asked, is he the one or not? And America stood behind President Obama. Very powerful woman. She is the greatest New Ager alive today. Oprah Winfrey. The greatest New Ager alive today. Promoting New Age all over the world. Oprah Winfrey says she was a Baptist, she was in a Baptist church, and she said the reason why I left the Baptist church was one day I was seated there and the pastor said, our God is a jealous God. He cannot accept to be worshipped alongside other gods. And Oprah said, I don't want a God like that. That's a God who is too narrow in his thinking. She left the Baptist church, and since then she's been promoting New Age ideas. She says, I believe in Jesus, but I don't believe in the Jesus of the Christians. The Jesus of the Bible is a very good man who is teaching us to love your neighbor as your... And Oprah Winfrey says, that's New Age philosophy. You recognize that your neighbor is as good as yourself, so love your neighbor. Okay? And so Oprah Winfrey is selling an idea that she's calling the Jesus consciousness. She says, if a Muslim knows about Jesus and tries to follow the teachings of Jesus, it doesn't matter what else they do, embrace them. If a Hindu knows about Jesus and is trying to live the way Jesus lived, don't mind whether they are worshipping idols, whether they're going into a Hindu temple, sacrificing to cows. That is irrelevant. Embrace them. It's called the Jesus consciousness. Great movement in the US and around the world. She has a leadership academy in South Africa here, where the young ladies are being taught these things. It's sad, actually. Very sad. But number 5 then. Ecumenicism, or what we can call loosely globalism. The age of Aquarius is the age of the global village, right? The age of the internet. At the click of a button, I can talk to somebody in America and in the United Kingdom, and they can see my face, and I can see their faces. The world must go towards one united government. That's called the New World Order, if you've ever heard of that. All right? The United Nations, the World Health Organization, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the two of them called the Bretton Woods institutions, International Criminal Court, the ICC, or the ICJ, International Court of Justice, UNICEF, WFP, World Food Program. Everything is global now, and Kenya cannot just make a decision on its own. The New World Order, World Council of Churches, WCC, localized here as NCCK, National Council of Churches of Kenya, the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, EAK. Everything is going towards a globalized setting. Ecumenicism and globalism, because we must bring a standard that recognizes everybody. So, for example, right now we have this coronavirus pandemic, right? Are we using our own rules, really? Seriously? No. The protocols we are following have been given to us by who? Thank you. We have surrendered our sovereignty. By the way, the government of Kenya, if it refuses this bill that has been brought to the Senate by the Honorable Susan Kihika, the women rep, I think, of Nakuru County, if they refuse it, you'll begin to see the big guns in Europe coming to Kenya, the big guns in America coming to Kenya, the representatives of the UN coming to Kenya, and they will be pushing to say, why are you infringing the rights of the young girls who want to have a right to make decisions over their own bodies, whether they are to abort or not to abort. These are human rights of the girl child. Okay? You know, the homosexuals went to court, didn't they? And they wanted to be legalized as a society. The world organizations like the UN will come down on Kenya and say the homosexual has a right. If I choose to sleep with another man who also chooses willingly to sleep with me, what does that decision have to do with you? We are doing our own thing in secret. What does that have to do with you? Inakumia wapi? This is the right of this individual and this individual, isn't it? And so they will say, who are you to decide that? Because remember, authority is not the decider. God isn't the decider. Who is the decider? The individual. An egalitarian society, we call it. So ecumenicism, globalism, is then another foundation on which the New Age is built. As a matter of fact, I think that as you see the bodies around the world coalescing and coagulating, if you like, amalgamating, coalescing, coming together, what you begin to see are universal rules, and many of them are anti-Christian. Now, I have a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, who is working with an organization, a Swedish organization, and they are promoting what they're calling interfaith dialogue. Interfaith dialogue. They were in Garissa the other day. He tells me about these things. And they are trying to help Muslims and Christians to dialogue together. Okay? And to find common ground. How will they find that common ground? Except a Christian is willing to accept that the Muslim is right to some extent. And that the Muslim is willing to accept that the Christian is right to some extent. In other words, unless I betray part of my faith, I surely cannot be in concert with a Muslim. But that's exactly the ecumenicism that is being driven by the New World Order, the New Age. Religion will play a less and less role in the lives of people. There are places now where you can go to jail for refusing to acknowledge homosexual marriage. There's a lady, I think in the US, or is it the UK, was taken to court because she has a bakery, right? They're supposed to be making cakes and stuff like that. And this homosexual couple approached her to make a cake for them for their wedding. And she said, I'm a Christian, I cannot participate. Those people went to court, can you believe it? And this woman was dragged in court. It's amazing. I know people in Europe who have been taken to court and jailed for just giving a gospel tract to another person. Because by giving that gospel tract, trying to sell your religion, aren't you suggesting that that other religion is wrong? That's what you're suggesting. And they say that is hate crime. You are hating another person. This is the age of Aquarius, okay? The day of the Antichrist. The reason why I'm saying all these things in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, is to make the point that we are living in a time of very confused things. And here is my appeal to you. Here is my, if I can leave you with this. This is a movement. It's ideas. Obviously there's a devil behind it, but it's not definable. You find yourself reading it in a book which is Christian, but it's a New Age philosophy. You find yourself listening to it from a preacher who is parroting ideas he doesn't know where they came from. And so going back to the words of the Apostle Paul, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and rulers and the host of spiritual wickedness in high places. But brothers and sisters, where does that battle take place? In the mind. Information. Don't accept to be ignorant. Don't accept to be ignorant. Be aware of the things going on. That's why I say, read the papers, please. Read the papers. Watch television. Watch the news. Things are happening, you know. Right now, I'm fascinated and I'm following. Just let me parrot. I'm alone here, but it's fine. You know, Brexit. Do you understand Brexit? Did you hear of our word Brexit? Huh? Even you, Stephen. Britain did a referendum the other day to pull out of the European Union. That was the single biggest decision England has ever made. And it has divided England right in the middle. the Brexit is Britain exit. So those words have been combined. Brexit. Britain exit the European Union. And the idea there was, people thought this is politics playing out. No, 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 we understood this is New Age at war. There were greater forces at work. Multi-billions of money poured out. The globalist ecumenicist agenda of the European Union and the World Bank, in a lesser capacity, East Africa. All right? It's playing out. And Britain now is being sidelined. The economy is going down. Europe is saying, we cannot trade with you here, we cannot trade with you here because you've left the bloc. It's becoming costly to run away from the Antichrist agenda. You pay a political and economic price. Right now we are watching, in 20 days, I think in 19 days, America goes to the ballot to elect a new president. Donald Trump on the one hand, Joe Biden on the other. Now you here in Kenya have been brainwashed. Most of you hate Donald Trump because a countryman called Obama was a president of the US. And the Kenyan government is aligned to the Democratic Party. That's Joe Biden. Very blindly, what they do not realize, the Democratic Party has always had a new age, globalist, ecumenicist agenda. We call it the far left liberal agenda. Homosexuality, abortion, all right? These are democratic platforms. Do the little people in Kenya know that? No, they don't. Obama was the worst president America ever had. By the way, scratch that, delete that. The worst leader the world ever had. The worst. Under Obama, the Supreme Court of the United Nations for the first time legalized at the federal level same-sex marriages. And Obama went to the steps of Capitol Hill and he sang the song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. He did. Legalizing of homosexuality is the grace of God. But we love our men, don't we? We love our men. And Kenya is a very stupid country, you know. We are lined up behind Democratic Party. The murder of unborn babies. 3,500 babies are killed every day in the USA. By the way, can I just tell you, the Democrats have said that if Biden comes to power, abortion will not just be legal in the first few weeks, it will be legal in the last month. Let me raise you higher. The baby will be born, and as the head comes out of the mother's womb, a doctor will have a Caesar. Yes, I've watched this on TV, on video. You wonder, how can human beings do that? It's going into the statute books of the USA. A doctor, mother says, as soon as the child is coming out, please kill it. And that will be in the legal books. The problem we have is information. So we will bind and lose, you see? We'll be binding and losing, but follow. You see, Susan Kihika has come with this bill, isn't it? And we will follow our usual political paths. Huyu ni mtu ya Ruto. Chochote anasema ni sawa. Huyu ni mtu ya Raila, sijui Uhuru. Some of these things have nothing to do with those individuals. They have nothing to do with those individuals. There are greater wars being fought at that higher level. The individual, the mother, is the ultimate decider. I have a baby with you. I think I don't like the way you look. Your head is big. My child will come with a big head. No, doctor, kill it. Let me find another one. Right now there are sperm banks, aren't there? Even in Kenya, by the way, there are sperm banks. They go looking for good-looking men. 6 foot tall, brown skin, athletic. They look at your IQ level. Are you intelligent? They put you through a test. The physical test you've passed, the intellectual test you've passed, and then they tell you, donate your sperm now. They take a picture of you and your scores, and then they attach it to the sperm. And then they tell a woman who wants a baby with you, this is the characteristics of the father. Like a shop. You go buy a baby. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. It's crazy. But we're in that time now. Just be careful as you navigate this world out there. It's a really treacherous world. Really, really treacherous world. But the Lord will help us in time to know. Again, can I plead with you, please? Find knowledge, all right? Knowledge is good, anytime. Read the papers. Follow news. Sometimes they're not important to you at that time. But follow what's happening in America, what's happening in Uganda now, for example. The democratic struggle there. These men that have stayed in power for 35 years, what does that mean for the Ugandans? Kenya now, you have Raila Odinga. Who is Raila Odinga, by the way? Who is he? He describes himself as a social democrat. What does that mean? Which party does he associate himself with? Democratic Party in the US, isn't it? The Socialist Party in Germany. I think the Christian Democrats. They will align themselves like that, won't they? Uhuru Kenyatta at the core is a communist. Socialist. That's why he aligns himself with the East, China. So don't just vote tribally. You know, I'm a Luo, Raila Baba, you know, and you follow as if your life depends. You're a Christian man or woman. Please think like a Christian and vote like a Christian. All right? I'm not saying vote for who. I'm just saying think. Okay? Think.